Hello, traditionalist, troglodytes, trad, trademies, friends of liberty,
Trad curious.
trad, trad curious. Yes,
Yeah, I mean,
welcome.
maybe you're not all the way there yet. You're trad curious.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you're a trad gen. I don't know. You're
Trad.
you're you're tradition fluid. I don't know. I don't know.
You're
I should probably just
tradition
shut up
adjacent.
now. Tradition adjacent. Yeah, I'm not a traditionalist, but I am tradition adjacent. Okay.
That's right. Well, welcome to the Return to Tradition podcast.
Guess who's back? Back again.
Oh man, we got brother, doctor, the man, Joey Wolverton. I'm Mike Leavitt. We are your host. Very excited to talk about it. And we're
Mike the Machine.
continuing our epic journey of women of liberty.
Man, and today is
Today's
to
special.
me. This is the well, man. I want to say that, but I don't know. I was gonna say this is the highlight, but Hortensia was pretty bad to the
Yeah.
bone. And then who did we start with? We started with
Oh, we started with what's your name in Colonial?
we
The
had
16-year-old
Jael from we started with Sybil Luddington,
Sybil. Yeah, that was our
and
first.
we had Jael.
Yeah.
We had
Woo.
those the midwives, the Hebrew midwives,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
we
And
had
and then we had the mother of the Maccabees.
oh yeah, the mother, we don't know her name, the mother of the Maccabees. And we had Hortensia.
Hortensia, and now we're
And
gonna well,
now,
and here's what I love about this is each one of them have used their feminine skills in such different ways. Exactly. I mean, we have the lovely Sybil, who just followed her father's
yeah, yeah,
commands and did what she was supposed to do, and that was wonderful. We had the midwives that disobeyed
mhm,
Pharaoh.
yeah,
We have the mother of the Maccabees, who in her to just, you can tell from the time those babies were young, taught them the ways of their traditions,
they
taught them the
doubted
ways.
not because their mothers had taught them.
Yes. We have Yazel and the steak, brother.
Hey, man. I
Come
mean,
on.
we've had some, and this is not you. I guarantee you, there's no one being taught this stuff. No, none of these people are being talked about in a school. None of
Yeah.
them.
Yep.
Well,
But
first of all,
this
you couldn't talk about some of them because it comes out of the what is it? We call it the Near Eastern myth book,
right, the religious tradition.
aka the Bible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Exactly.
So we couldn't talk about those people or the
And then the other
Maccabees.
ones are complete, usurpers of the government cult. And so
Destroyer. Yeah, that's right. They're completely heretical to the cult of statism. They've
exactly.
all been excommunicated,
Yep.
which
Yeah,
we could all
lost to
only hope to
history.
be. Yeah.
But
But
today,
Boudicca,
today we're talking somebody fierce. We're
she
talking
is fierce.
she is fierce. And I'm going to quote my friend here,
Okay.
Joe Wolverton. Long live brave Boudicca, our warrior queen so grand, who fought for her homeland. With sword in hand, from Iceni she came to challenge Rome's great name. Her spirit did proclaim, freedom shall stand. She led with fiery grace in battle's fierce embrace against Roman race. Her courage showed. With daughters by her side, she fought with honor, pride. Her legend far and wide in hearts has grown. Though Rome did strike her down, her name will wear the crown in history's renown. She shall remain brave Boudicca, our queen. Her fight for liberty seen in every heart serene. Her spirit reigns. Long live her legacy of strength and bravery. Boudicca, fierce and free, for forevermore her story will retell of how she fought so well. Her courage did compel forevermore. Long live Boudicca.
There you go.
This is, I mean, we're talking about one of the great stories. And again, a story I never heard. I was never taught in my
That is a
school.
crying shame.
And I'm guessing that maybe, I don't know, probably not in England. They probably not taught in their primary schools, but
Yeah, they're not taught about Boudicca. There are, she is a heroine in England. They do have statues here and there of Boudicca. Um, Boudicca, they think, is the root word, or I guess, yeah, I guess you could say the source of the word Victoria. So, but it could be that. It could be something else as well. They just mostly, I think, they wanted to do that to give some sort of, I guess, what do they call it? What do you call it? Some borrowed valor
oh yeah,
to Queen Victoria by comparing. But I mean, Queen Victoria, nobody compares to Boudica. I
no,
mean, and if you're English, like I mean, I don't know that the latest DNA thing. I think I'm like 78% English. I mean, Boudica, she's your heroine. She's got to be up
yes,
there with, you know, and she's English. It's not, yeah, all due respect to St. George, but he's Turkish.
right,
I mean, I'm sorry. And Alfred, that's awesome, but that's all so after this. This is, Alfred taking on the other petty kings of England, or Ethelred doing the same thing, taking on, signing agreements, which is actually the anniversary of that today.
what?
Yeah, today's the anniversary of sort of the uniting of the kingdoms into one England under Ethelred. Yeah, he got the five families, so to speak, got together and recognized him as the monarch. And so, but anyway, neither here nor there. But today is the anniversary, so shout out to Ethelred.
Right on.
Um, but Boudica took on Rome.
Right,
I mean, it's one. Look, I'm not saying that the Vikings weren't formidable
right,
and terrible in the strictest Latin use of that word, but Boudica took on Rome. King Alfred had an army,
hmm,
albeit a citizen army, but nonetheless, Boudica, she had to start essentially, in the immortal words of Drake, start it from the bottom, now we her. Started from
exactly.
the bottom, now the whole crew her. And
The whole
Boudica
crew
did.
was her.
Yeah, the whole crew was there. Boudica rode around making sure all them were ready to go, and they
Yeah,
were ready to go, all because of her. And just so anyway, please listen to the whole dang thing, man. Listen to this lady's story. She deserves, if nothing more than her bravery, she deserves you to spend an hour listening to us talk about her
yeah,
and her actions, her courage, her motherhood,
for sure.
her respect for chastity, her, respect for her husband's legacy, and her loathing of Rome,
Yeah,
and her righteous indignation against that empire, which at that time was, I mean, it was still pretty small. We're talking 60-ish, AD 60, right around
right.
there. So
But they
we're
were
looking
stretching
at,
their legs. I mean,
huh?
they were stretching their legs. They were,
Yeah, I
the
mean,
Rome
while
was.
Buddha, you got to think of this. This is what's crazy. Boudica and the Apostle Paul walked the earth at the same time.
Oh, that's crazy. That's true.
Yeah, you
Wow.
know. So yeah, it's really crazy when you start, taking the world and putting it together in one timeline. It's crazy to think about. But yeah, so you got Boudica, who is taking on the empire of Rome, and I think she could have been excused if she just said, you know what, hey, the might makes right kind of thing. They're too
Right.
strong for us. What are we going to do?
Yeah, we're gonna
You
we're,
know,
we're gonna make the best of a bad situation.
right? Like you read in Tacitus Germania, the German tribes that lived along the border with Rome were like, look, we want to maintain our culture, but not at the cost of war.
Right.
So let's accommodate the
Well, and I
Romans.
think if I understand the story correctly, I mean that was the idea going into this. To what happened was I don't know if it was her husband, but one of the kings was basically saying, we're gonna marry into Roman families. We're gonna allow this to, you
Yeah, it
know,
wasn't her husband, but it was, yeah, the king. You had these tribes, and please, you can go and you can Google and look at all the different Saxon and Brittonic tribes that lived in, what we call England. And I loved that when I lived in England, I lived out near where Boudicca lived. And, you know, there were a lot of tribes, and each one of these tribes had a king. And there came a time when each one of these kings had to decide, do you want to die or do you want to be a client servant king of Rome? But that sounds awfully familiar.
yeah, it does.
Do you want to pay your taxes or do you want to go to jail?
Yep.
That's literally no difference.
Oh yeah. Hey, you got a nice business here. Wouldn't want something to happen.
Yeah, it's like, do you want to wake up and have zero funds in your accounts,
Mhm.
or do you want to pay what we say you owe?
Right.
And this is what happened to Boudica. It was basically her. I don't know. You want to introduce the story? You can go ahead, introduce the story, my friend.
Well. Yeah. I mean, Roman is infringing uh, into British territory, and yeah, and these decisions are being made by each of these separate kings, these separate tribal kings, um, but um, uh, so my understanding was Boudica's husband, the king. So she's the queen of her tribe.
Right.
Um, you know, I made the decision that no, we're going to stand up. Am I remembering that
Yeah, yeah,
correctly?
that's right. So
We're
Claudius,
not gonna bow to Rome. That we have our culture, we have our way of life. We're living well, we're living free, and we do not want to be under the thumb of Caesar or
yeah, well,
the
Caesar. I mean, they called all the that's people like aren't taught that very well, but they're Caesar is what they called all of them, not just Julius Caesar. They called all the rest of them Caesar. So Claudius was and again here on Return to Tradition, we're reading your sources, man. We're going to the Tacitus, we're going to the Cassius Dio. We are not reading this downstream. We're reading it from the sources closest to the events. That's what you got to do. Don't Google Boudica and think you know about Boudica. Because what
but
you'll do is you'll read it and be like, hmm,
yeah. By the way, having doing that, I did that. I said, "Oh, Boudica, what's going on?" And it was so. There was a few YouTube videos,
yeah.
but none of them told the story well. And there was a
Because
few,
there's no interest in it. There's no interest
yeah.
in having stories of these kind of females. The stories Taylor Swift sold out the Sydney whatever 3 nights in a row. And what era are you in, girlfriend? I'm in my Boudica era.
The
I want to
Boudica.
get some girls who are no longer in their whatever. I want some girls who are in their Boudica era.
Yeah.
So please, if you're a young lady and you're in your Boudica era, after you listen to this, you decide you're in your Boudica era, comment that I'm in my Boudica era so we know who we can count on when time comes to start cracking skulls.
Boudica era T-shirt TM.
Yeah, man. Hey, trademark. There you go. We're gonna have I'm in my Boudica era T-shirts and have someone who can really, maybe, I don't know, someone with some real artistic talents make a T-shirt with Boudica just looking fierce, because we can read in a minute what she looked like, or what they said she looked like, and they had no reason to lie about what she looked like. But what went down is this: so in order to maintain their authority over their little kingdom, these kings had to sign an agreement with the Roman emperor that basically said, when I die, you get half my stuff. That's basically what it comes down to. Well, Claudius is like, yeah, I don't want half. I want all your stuff. So Boudica's husband, Persaticus, he dies, right? R.I.P. And you also have a weird connection with Boudicca and Seneca. So all you Stoics out there, one of your heroes, and don't get me wrong, I'm all about some Seneca. I quote Seneca way more than is healthy. Seneca, I really, really enjoy. But my man had a little something to do. So he had loaned, according to Cassius Dio, he had loaned 40 million sesterces to these people. And he's like, yeah, I want him back. He'd loaned it out, and then he decides to, quote, call in this loan all at once.
Nice.
So Claudius and Seneca are like, what is it that Cassius says? Let's resort to severe measures in exacting what we are owed from the Britons. I'm Arthur, king of the Britons. Who made you
How often
king?
does that happen when we try to exact what is owed? When do we ever get exact? Typically, you end up taking much more and being much more fierce, and it ends up being way more bloody than exact.
Also, I mean, how much do you, okay, you loaned 40 million sisters. Okay, first of all, that's on you, mate. Do some due diligence. It's like when they that sued against Donald Trump when they said he inflated the value of his building. Well,
Right,
no, Sherlock.
right. If it's your
That's
money,
what you do. And guess what? If you're Deutsche Bank and Donald Trump fools you, that's on you. That's not on Donald Trump. That's on your Deutsche Bank. He's one dude. You're an international banking conglomerate. If a guy says, "Yeah, my building is worth 300 million," and you pay him 300 million for, I don't want to hear that he fooled you
right?
or that he committed some kind of crime. There's no crime unless getting over is a crime, and getting over isn't a crime.
Well, and as the old uh, thing, my father and your father and everybody's father said, "What is something worth? What somebody's willing to pay for
What are
it."
you willing to pay for it? So he gives it out. So there, the Romans are like, Claudius is like, yes, let us go and collect your money and collect what is owed to me, right?
Right. And think about
So
that,
he,
like the state's going to go and collect. Yeah, that's
I mean, and this is the thing that always gets me about all of this, man. Did he need it? And not only that, but okay, let's say Claudius and let's say Seneca are like, doesn't matter if we needed it or not, we're owed it. Okay, cool. You have they literally did have a contract. All right, you're going to enforce your contract. Okay, how are you going to do that? I don't know, send them a letter or send some people up there and say, hey, you got, since it's a lot of money, maybe I'm gonna give you, because I remember when I was a lawyer, and sadly, and this is an embarrassment, but we represented Bank of America, which I'll probably spend some time in hell for that. But we represented Bank of America foreclosing on people's houses. Now, I understood that was my job. But when I would go to court and usually the people didn't show up to the hearings. And so I would just make, motion for summary judgment against the defendant for failure to appear. And the judge would be like, motion granted and whatever. But sometimes they would show up. Well, I remember one time, and oh my gosh, the family showed up and I felt terrible. Here I am, the son of sharecroppers, representing Bank of America, about to throw these people out of their family home. And I was like, Your Honor, can I have 15 minutes to go talk to the defendants in the hall? And he says, Yeah, all right. So I went out in the hall and I'm like, What's the deal? Tell me what's going on. And they were telling me. So I go back in and I'm like, Your Honor, I want to move for a 6 months continuance of this case. He's like, and the clerk says to me, 6 months. And I said, Yeah, 6 months. Okay. So they gave me 6 months. I got back to the law firm and my bosses were mad. They're like 6 days, and we would have thought you were crazy. 6 months, you should be fired.
Right. Right.
But you give him time. So here you got 40 million sesterces, and you got Claudius who wants his, cut. Go up and try to be persuasive and give him some time to pay. And I'm sure they could have worked it out.
Right. But it
But it
wasn't about the
always
money,
comes
was
down
it?
to we're going straight to the violence,
Right.
and not on the part of Boudicca.
Yeah.
Yeah, Boudicca resorted to violence after she was treated violently.
Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna get to that. But
Yes.
and that's the thing that I think about is it goes right to violence, and it really it seemed like that the point was not to get the money back. The point was to
Once they got there, it seemed like the point was just to prove that we're tougher than you.
exactly.
But isn't that how the IRS does it?
That's how it does it.
Isn't that how the
Yeah.
FBI does
You
it?
got to send a message.
Yeah. The IRS, it's nothing to do with the money.
Right.
It's to make you bow down.
Oh, taxes aren't about money. They print whatever they want. It has nothing like us having to fill out a form on April 15th and
It's
give
ridiculous
half
because
of
they
our
already
bank
have all
account to
that
them
information.
has nothing to do with the money.
No, it has to do with showing you that we are in charge.
Right.
You've got to bow down. We don't bow to a king in America. You're a liar. You do. You fill out forms that you don't need to fill out because they already have copies of all that stuff.
Right.
They just want you to show that you're
Well,
being
again,
obedient.
they want you to make a mistake so they can get you.
Well, that too. And they want you to be obedient. So here we go. We have Claudius Seneca sending up forces and resorting to severe measures to exact what they're owed by the Britons. Now, it says in Cassius Dio, and this is now we don't have his entire record, Cassius Dio. So, and some people call him Dio Cassius. I don't care. Call him whatever you want. He's dead. He probably doesn't care. We can call him Ronnie James Dio for all he cares, So he writes, the person who was chiefly instrumental in rousing the natives, so the British, and persuading them to fight the Romans, the person who was thought worthy to be their leader and who directed the conduct of the entire war was Boudicca, a Briton woman of the royal family and possessed of greater intelligence than often belongs to women. Which come on, we could have Cassius. Come on now.
Yeah, go on.
Cassius must have been single, or else his wife didn't have access. She'd have been like, "You better cross that part out.
Right. Erase that right now. Son.
Someone's gonna be sleeping in the living room.
Yeah.
You better cross that part." So this woman assembled her army to the number of some 120,000. So did we tell what the deal was? So the deal is,
no, I think we need to back
go
it up.
ahead.
Yeah,
back it up. But
Yeah,
big fine woman, won't you back that thing up?
right. We're getting that.
We got to back up the
Yeah,
Boudicca.
that's not the punchline. We got to say why. What was her righteous indignation?
Tell about her righteous indignation.
Here's the deal. They came in, and as they were exacting their 40 million drachmas or whatever the freak they're exacting,
drachma, sesterces, but whatever,
whatever,
dollars,
some form of
pounds, dollars,
yeah,
whatever.
They were taking the men and sending them to be slaves.
Yup.
They were.
Hey, wait, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. This story does not hold water, sir. Okay, so the Romans were white. No one's questioning that.
Right.
Britons were white. You and I are Britons. Yeah. They were white. But you just said that these white people took the other white people as slaves. We all know that only black people were slaves in history, Mike.
Oh, my apologies. I'm
outside
of February.
Let me write this. Someone needs to send a note. Dear Homeland Security.
Oh, and by the way, this was Britain, so there was no slavery except for in America.
No one had ever heard of slavery. Yeah, Mike, and that's another thing. There was never any slavery until 1619.
Right. So
Okay, so
they
well,
were
you need to
taken
tell the
away
story correctly,
voluntarily.
or
They
I
were
will
taken
send the DEI patrol over to
That's
your
right. They were
house.
taken voluntarily so that they
There we
could,
go.
be servants to
Uh,
the,
Careful.
for free, at the, at
Yeah.
their own expense.
Right.
So they were not slaves. They
No,
were just taken away
impossible.
to a foreign land to be taken care of and sheltered for their own
Right.
good.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So after they were taken as
And
slaves.
so and then the other aspect was, well, that was the men. With the
Mhm.
women, it was worse. I mean, slaughter, rape,
Yeah,
the
and
things
not just
that
rape.
Romans do.
Yeah, exactly. Rome doing what, that famous saying, that LeBron James had, "Kangs do Kang things."
Right.
Well, Romans do Roman things.
Yep.
And
And
one of the things that they did was,
yeah,
yeah,
violate every woman that they could, including Boudicca's daughters. She had two daughters. Both of them were raped, and
both of
Boudica,
them both of them tied to poles
yes.
and gang raped
Let's let that sink in for a second. And Boudica was whipped.
and tied herself and forced to watch it.
Yep. And um and you know what? That sparked a little fire in Boudica.
Yeah, she was a little.
Mother Bear started to growl. And if the Romans were smart, they would have killed her. But they, once again, it takes um, somebody coming from an unexpected place sometimes to topple or to strike fear into tyrants. Excuse me.
And the interesting thing is, you read Tacitus, who tells the story, part of the story. Tacitus tells some of the story as well. And he talks about, these, the Britons being sold into slavery. And he said, without the Romans being there all the time. Now think about, so we know why Boudica now was enraged. Her husband had just died. Like, he's literally, the body's not cold. The Romans are there. They sack the town. They enslave the men. They take her royal daughters, tie them to trees, and gang rape them. They force Boudica to watch that. They whip her repeatedly. And I'm sure they had a go probably at her as well. But if you go back just even a little bit farther to Boudica's husband, her now deceased husband, the Romans had placed them under subjection. And I love so if you go to Agricola, right? That's Tacitus, he tells a little bit of story about England there and the Roman policy. He says something, it's very interesting. He says, for with fear banished. So the British now were out away from where the Iceni tribe, it's in like what we would call East Anglia today in England. If you live Cambridge, Ely, Bury St. Edmunds, Peterborough, that sort of place, the Iceni tribe was around that area. Lots of other tribes too. But the Romans had moved on inland, right? So their fear of these Roman soldiers before her husband died. So the fear had kind of gone away. It's just because they were afraid of the Roman soldiers and the Roman governors and all of this. But as the Romans moved away farther into the country, Tacitus writes, and I think this is one of those things that we have to apply to ourselves. He says, for with fear banished, because the fear was gone, and the governor absent, he'd gone up to deal with, administrative things farther north and west. The Britons, now listen, oh, please, in the name of all you hold holy, think about this and apply this to yourself. With fear banished and the governor absent. Now, there's two ways for that to happen. The army can leave and the governor can bugger off, or you can leave
Right.
and leave those two things behind.
Yeah.
Because I can skin a buck and I can run a trot line. And we say, sir, and we say, ma'am. Right?
Yes,
And these
sir.
old boys, we bring our own guns.
Yep.
I don't need none of yours. Don't come for mine. So there's two ways to get rid of the fear of the army and the government. For the army and the government to leave, or for you to leave the army and the government.
Amen.
In that situation, though, now this, again, this is Tacitus. Joey and Mike, we don't drink downstream. In this situation, the Britons began to discuss the evils of slavery, to compare their wrongs and inflame their grievances. Nothing is gained by submission, they argued, except that heavier commands are laid on those who appear to be willing sufferers.
Wow.
That
Wow.
must
That's
happen today.
a
The army and the
freaking man.
government ain't going to leave you, but you can leave the army and the government.
That's right.
I got thousands of acres of 1,000-year-old forest here in the greenest state in the land of the free. And, know every inch of it. And we can survive and
And
they can't.
and I'll tell you, man, the having just a little bit of taking a little bit of space
Oh, yeah.
to reflect, to uh, to to really understand before the next crisis comes. I mean, we just went through this thing a couple of years ago with COVID, where absolutely we had a complete totalitarian regime put upon us. And how many people have reflected on that and fired up their emotions and realized what the heck was done to us?
Well, Samuel Adams says, unless you punish them, they're going to do it again and worse as soon as they know you've forgotten.
That's right. That's right. And I love that, the evils of slavery,
As
like
soon as that stuff, get yourself away from the army and from the government, the
we start
evils
thinking
of
right.
slavery. You start thinking right. Start comparing the wrongs and inflaming your grievances, nothing, and teaching your children. And this is why Boudicca was who she was. Nothing is gained by submission except that heavier commands are laid on those who appear to be willing
That's
sufferers.
right. That's right. 100%.
And now he says, in the old days, we had one king in every kingdom. But now we all have two kings. One, a governor who commits riots and bloodshed, and one, a fake king who is now just an imperial agent who wreaks havoc on our property. Do we have, look, if you have ears to hear, he's talking about we used to be a state and we did things whatever we thought was right. But now we don't have that. Now we have two kings. We have a federal government that is devoted to riot and bloodshed all over the world in our
100%.
name. And then we have a governor who's not a governor, but he's an imperial agent, an agent of the empire who does nothing but wreak havoc on our property. But you ain't
I
fixing to
mean,
read. You ain't
you
fixing to
don't
read
have
none of this in school.
no. No, because
Think of the
it might
lessons we've already
inflame.
learned.
There might be some inflamed people.
They're better. Heck, I taught for 5 years at Heritage, and if some of them kids did not get their grievances didn't get inflamed and they didn't learn that all that happens when you submit is heavier commands are laid on you, then I wasted 5 years of my life. And that's a shame. And they're going to have to answer for that because I did my best to inflame their grievances. And so you get that situation. So this is the situation that exists. They are out of the presence of government and the army. I mean, I'm telling you, you read this and we,
By the
in
way, that I think
Tacitus.
another thing is that the importance of an alternative. Like if you don't need 50% of the country to agree with you, you don't need even a majority. You don't even need you don't need a lot of people. You just need an alternative. You need a place where you can, have a refuge and inflame your grievances. That's
And now, yeah, you just got to get away from it, man. And don't let them tell you that you can't.
right.
You have to be willing to sacrifice a lot, but you can. You can get where they can't hear you, where they can't see you. You really can. It requires sacrifice, but if that's what you want to do, you can do it. And I think it's worth noting also. So in this Agricola, where he talks about this, it's like, at last, heaven itself was taking pity on Britain. God was keeping the Roman general at a distance and his army in the seclusion of another island. Already on their side, they had taken, now listen to this. Oh, Tacitus, don't hurt him, son. The British had taken the step which was the most difficult step to take. They had opened up the question of rising up against Rome and debating that question. And this is what Tacitus says about that was the most difficult step they took at that moment. The most difficult step. They started debating rising up against the empire. And Tacitus writes, in such debates, detection is more dangerous than daring. Don't let them find out, because they will crush you. They will plant child pornography on your computer. They will create fake text messages between you and a mistress. They will do that. They can and have done that. Ask Tucker Carlson. Ask Edward Snowden. Ask Julian Assange. They will plant things that will convince everybody that what they're doing to you is justified. Detection is more dangerous than daring.
That's right.
You got to take that first step, but you got to do it in the right way. And be aware when heaven is taking pity on you.
Man, right. No, absolutely. You got to be able to, we talked about this yesterday, Joe. We got to be aware of the signs and the times, what's around us, and recognize when is the right time to strike or plant or,
That's right. Now we come to Boudicca. So that's the situation. Boudicca's husband dies, and Romans decide, let's go back.
Let's go teach a lesson.
To get our, what's that?
Let's go teach a lesson.
Let's go teach them a lesson. They're up there debating about rising up. Yeah, let's go show them you can't beat City Hall. Let's go show them.
Right.
That you can't beat City Hall. And so, as Cassius Dio, and well, how does Tacitus say it? Tacitus says it in one way. He says, sorry, my eyes are old. He says, inspiring each other with these and similar arguments, the whole nation took up arms under the command of Boudicca, a woman of royal blood. They recognized no distinction of sex among their rulers. And then she goes, and it tells how he tells a very short version of. She goes off and starts fighting the Romans.
Yeah, and I love the little piece of her speech that he quotes.
Now that's right. So that's in his annals.
Okay.
He quotes. Did you? Yeah. Go ahead.
Well,
Quote
I'm
on,
going to
man.
paraphrase.
Well, wait. Before you quote it, can I read the part that leads up to that
Yeah, please. Yeah,
in
absolutely.
annals? So this is book 14, paragraph 30. So book 14, paragraph 30. For those of you scoring at home, of Tacitus's annals. He says, so the Romans, the soldiers arrive, right? On the beach stood the averse array, a serried mass of arms and men, with women flitting between the ranks. In the style of furies, in robes of deathly black and with disheveled hair, they brandished their torches, with a circle of druids lifting their hands to heaven and showering imprecations. And it struck the troops with such an awe at the extraordinary spectacle that, as though their limbs were paralyzed, they exposed their bodies to wounds without an attempt at movement. Then, reassured by their general and inciting each other never to flinch before a band of females and fanatics, they charged behind their standards, cutting down all who met them and enveloping the enemy in flames. So they go out to get so that's just them facing off against the druids,
Right.
who were like they're standing these druid, but what a crazy description.
I
Yeah.
know. Well, it's almost like the Druids were, you know, playing their
Robes
like
of
they were
deathly black with disheveled hair. It's like
well they
goth.
were
It's
mourning their
giving
own
goth
funeral.
girl. Yeah, it's giving goth girl vibes though, right?
Right.
Disheveled hair, deathly black robes, brandishing torches, lifting their hands to heaven, and showering imprecations upon the troops. And the troops are like, all right, now. So later in chapter 35 of book 14, now do you want to read Boudicca's inspiring speech?
Yeah, let me pull that up. Um I was going to paraphrase it, but you're right. We should read it. Uh, okay. Book yeah, 35.
Mm-hmm.
Boudicca, mounted in a chariot with her daughters, before her rode up to clan after clan and delivered her protest. It was customary, she knew, with Britons to fight under female captaincy, but now she was avenging, not as a queen of glorious ancestry, her ravished realm and power, but as a woman of the people, her liberty lost, her body tortured by the lash, the tarnished honor of her daughters. Roman
Cupidity. Yeah.
cupidity had progressed so far that not their very persons, not age itself, nor maidenhood were left unpolluted. Yet heaven was on the side of their just revenge. One legion which ventured battle had perished; the rest were skulked in their camps, or were looking around them for a way to escape. They would never face even the din and roar of those many thousands, far less their onslaught with their swords. If they considered in their own hearts the forces under arms and the motives of the war on the field, they must conquer and fall. Such was the settled purpose of a woman. The men might live by slaves. And I'm missing the speech. I thought it was right there where she basically says, I understand I'm the queen general, but I'm not queen. I'm here as a free, um I'm here to push these people out, that they will no longer call us slaves. And now I'm really
Oh,
frustrated.
I think you're talking about the one in Dio.
Oh, maybe that's it.
Yeah, the one in Dio where so this woman assembled her army to the number of 120,000 and then ascended a tribunal which had been constructed of earth in the Roman fashion. In stature, she was very tall, In appearance, most terrifying. In the glance of her eye, most fierce. Her voice was harsh. A great mass of the tawniest hair fell to her hips. Around her neck was a large golden necklace, and she wore a tunic of diverse colors over which a thick mantle was fastened with a brooch. See that right there? Someone with an artistic talent
Yes.
needs to make that for us and stylize that. And I'm in my Boudicca era.
Boom.
That's our $1 million idea, dude.
Dude, t-shirts will be out when
T-shirts
this
will be out.
podcast is
We'll have to
released.
start. We're gonna have to start selling merch, man, because we got to have the whole make women Jael again.
That's right.
We've got a lot of merch we need to.
If you can't handle my Judges 4, you don't deserve my
Proverbs
Proverbs.
30 or whatever. Yeah, yeah,
Pretty good.
exactly. So here she was, and Dio says this was her invariable attire. In other words, that's how she always dressed. She now listen closely. Gather up close to the radio, to the wireless. Gather up close to the wireless. She now grasped a spear to aid her in terrifying all beholders. See, there's lessons, y'all, in every little bit of this. She was just dressed the way she normally dresses, right? Her voice was harsh, her eye was fierce, and she held a spear to aid in terrifying the people that she was speaking to. You have learned by actual experience how different freedom is from slavery. Hence, although some among you may previously, through ignorance of which was better, have been deceived by the alluring promises of the Romans, yet now that you've tried both, you've learned how great a mistake you made in preferring an imported despotism to your ancestral way of life. You've come to realize how much better is poverty with no master than wealth is with slavery. What treatment is there of the most shameful or grievous sort that we've not suffered ever since these men made their appearance in Britain? Have we not been robbed entirely of most of our possessions? And those the greatest, while for those that remain, we still have to pay taxes? And besides pasturing and tilling for them, we pay a yearly tribute for them for that which is our very own. How much better it would have been. How much better it would be to have been sold to masters once and for all, possessing empty titles of freedom, than to have to ransom ourselves every year. How much better to have been slain and to have perished than to go about with taxes on our heads. But why do I mention death? For even dying is not free of taxes with them. Nope, you know what fees we deposit even for our dead. Among the rest of mankind, death frees those who are in slavery to others. It's only in the case of the Romans do the very dead remain alive for the profit of the empire. Why is that? None of us has any money. How indeed could we have any? Where would we get it? We're stripped and despoiled like a murderer's victims. And why should the Romans be expected to display moderation as time goes on? When they've behaved toward us in this fashion since the very outset? When all men show consideration even for the beasts they have newly captured. But to speak the plain truth, it's we who ourselves are responsible for all these evils because we allowed them to set foot on this island in the first place. We should have expelled them at once as we did their famous Julius Caesar. Yes, and in that we did not deal with them while they were far away, as we dealt with Augustus and Caligula, and make even the attempt to sail here a formidable thing. As a consequence, although we inhabit so large an island that it's encircled by the sea, and although we possess a veritable world of our own, separated by oceans from all the rest of mankind, that we believed by some to even dwell on a different earth and under a different sky. Some of the outside world, even their wisest men, have not hitherto known for certainty even by what name we are called. We have, notwithstanding all of this, been despised and trampled underfoot by men who know nothing else than how to get gain. However, even at this late date, though we have not done so before, let us, my countrymen, my friends, and my kinsmen, for I consider all of you my kinsmen, seeing that we all inhabit a single island and are called by a common name. Let us, my kinsmen, I say, do our duty while we still remember what it means to be free. That we may leave to our children not just the name of freedom, but also the reality of it. For if we utterly forget the happy and free state in which we were born and bred, pray, what will they do, being born and bred in bondage? And all this I say, not with the purpose of inspiring you with a hatred of present conditions. That hatred you should already have. Nor with fear for the future, for that fear you should already have. But of commending you, because you now, of your own accord, choose the requisite course of action, and of thanking you for so readily cooperating with me and with each other. Have no fear of whatever the Romans, for they are superior to us in number. They are not superior to us neither in numbers nor in bravery. And here's the proof. They've protected themselves with helmets and breastplates, and further provided themselves with palisades and walls and trenches to make sure of no harm by an incursion of their enemies. For they are influenced by their fears when they adopt this kind of fighting in preference to the plan we follow of rough and ready action. Indeed, we enjoy such a surplus of bravery that we regard our tents safer than their walls, and our shields more protection than their whole suit of armor. As a consequence, we, when victorious, capture them, and when overpowered, elude them. And if we ever choose to retreat anywhere, we conceal ourselves in swamps and mountains so inaccessible that we can never be discovered nor taken. Our opponents, however, can neither pursue anybody by reason of their heavy armor, nor yet flee. And if they ever do slip away from us, they take refuge in appointed spots where they shut themselves up as in a trap. But these are not the only respects in which they are vastly inferior to us. There's also the fact that they can't bear up under hunger, thirst, cold, and heat like we can. They require shade and covering. They require kneaded bread and wine and oil. And if any of these things fails them, they perish. For on the other hand, for us, any grass or root serves as bread. The juice of any plant is oil, any water is wine, and any tree is a house. This region is familiar to us and is our ally, but it is unknown to them and is hostile. As for the rivers, we swim them naked. They can't even get across them with boats. Let us therefore go against them, trusting boldly to good fortune, and let us show them that they are rabbits and foxes trying to rule over dogs and wolves. I'm going to tell you,
That's something that should be memorized by everybody. Period.
when you have her saying, it's our duty while we still can remember what freedom is, that we leave to our children not just its name, but its reality. For if we utterly forget the happy state in which we were born and bred, what, pray, will they do, born and bred in bondage? I mean, she just goes on. The speech, please. It's in, go to Cassius Dio, the epitome of book 62. We are responsible for this, she says.
Right.
She says that
It's our fault.
we
We let
let
them.
them set foot on this island instead of kicking them out when we had the chance. We never should have let them set foot in this island. We never should have let the federal government have the first unconstitutional act. We should have seceded from this mother scratcher the moment they decided that that's the way they were going to go.
But we can pull them down now. We can, it's
There
going
you
to be
go.
harder and more bloody, but we can do it now.
We might not have done it when we should have, but we can do it now.
Yep.
And yeah, we didn't use the wisdom we should have used. And so now we might have to wade through seas of blood. But you read Boudicca, get fired up, man. Get fired up. If reading her
And
that
again,
speech doesn't fire you up, you and me ain't friends.
those again, as you would say, as the scriptures say, those with ears hear. I mean, it's pretty dang clear. Talking about in Rome, the even the dead
Even the
are
dead pay
alive.
taxes. Yeah.
Even the dead are alive to support the empire. I
Yeah.
mean, that's right up what's happening now, straight up. And wow, that's so powerful. I think I you know I it's like that speech alone is worth the price of admission. Like,
Yeah.
read it, inhale it, feast on it. Just
Would you? I mean, she says, wouldn't it have been better to have died than to be these slaves like we are? To just,
wouldn't it be better to be slaves and call it what it is?
yeah, let's call it what it is. I'm your slave. And, where does the first one she says, when she says, where's the first? Let me get back to the first thing she says when she says, uh, and when she talks about how we even have to pay taxes just to be alive. We don't just pay taxes on our income or on our we pay taxes just being alive, and we pay taxes for being dead. I mean, you have learned by actual experience how different freedom is from slavery. And some of you have ignorantly been deceived. But this part where she says how great a mistake you've made in preferring an imported despotism to your ancestral way of life, and you've come to this part, Michael. If you feel it, let him hear it.
Preach,
When he
brother
says,
Liberty.
how much better is poverty with no master than wealth with slavery?
Yeah, amen. Absolutely.
I'd just
And
rather live back in the woods, you see, with my women and my kids and my dogs and me.
yep. Yep.
You can have all the rest. You think I'm lying? Come in here and take all of this. I'm still going to be fine tomorrow.
Yeah. Dude, that's
But that's not the same, because it's just what she said. These
right.
people exist for one reason: to get gain.
Right.
They don't know happiness. They don't know kinsmen. They don't know loyalty.
and
And this,
it's that
you know,
it's this
this
speech,
is the empire.
right? It's this it's this speech, it's these, and it's not just a speech, it's the action, it's who she was, it's everything about her that fired up these troops that took on the empire.
Took it on and won, and kept winning. I mean, yes, we don't know what happened to her. That's the thing. Nobody knows what happened to Boudicca.
She's probably still up in the mountains there.
Well, I can tell you where she definitely is. 100% tell you where she is. She's in heaven, and I hope she's pleased with what we've said about her. Uh, I'm grateful to be. I mean, with women like that, I'm grateful to be British. Grateful for her example. And grateful for her ability to just say things and know how to fire people up.
Yeah. Yep.
Be poor and free rather than be rich and enslaved. We can, and then she says, we didn't do it when we should have, but we can still do it. And basically she's like, we can skin a buck and we can run a trot line and a country boy can't survive. That's basically what she says, right? They can't even get across our rivers in boats. We can swim across them naked.
That's right.
We know this place. They outnumber us. Who cares? That
Yeah,
we're
this is our
outarmed.
home.
Who cares? This is our house. What are they fighting for? They're fighting for money. You're fighting for your kinsmen, your friends. That's a big deal. And she's like, we can win. And they won. They kept winning. Obviously, eventually they lost, right? But her story is a victory. She roused them up, and you continue reading the story in Tacitus's annals, in Cassius Dio's Roman history, a little bit in Agricola by Tacitus. And she kept winning. She would go from tribe to tribe and rouse them up with speeches like that. And like she says, she's like, I'm not here to get you to hate the empire. You should already hate them.
Right. That was a great line.
And I'm
You
not
should
here to
already
tell you
feel
how bad the
contempt for.
future could. Yeah. I mean, when she's like, you should already hate them. I'm not here to tell you how bad the future should be. You should already know that.
Yeah.
I'm here to say this is our last chance to do something about it.
Yep.
And you're either with me or against me.
Well, brother, I think this is a good place to end it. I think Boudicca, it is a new Boudicca era. Let's make that happen.
We'll get the merch in
That's
my
right.
Boudicca era. But
Boudicca
if you
hats.
watch this and you're a young woman, please comment that you're in your Boudicca era.
Yeah.
Because we need y'all.
Amen.
We need y'all.
We've got great shows coming up. We're going to talk about the Power Brothers, right? We're going to talk about the Regulators.
The Regulators, mount up.
Woo! We got stuff happening. But for now, for today, the fierce Boudicca, let her reign. Let her spirit reign in all of us.
Yeah. Amen.
Thanks for listening to the show, guys. Pass it on.
Yes. Yeah, please
it's worth it.
Please pass it on.